Just when you think you've seen it all in college football, it continues to roll something out that you could never anticipate. As we come to you here from a chilly Blacksburg, Virginia, December 10th, year of our Lord 2025. We'll get into the latest Virginia Tech staff updates. Obviously, the news of Danny O'Brien coming on the staff as quarterbacks coach, some of those new retention and exits from the Pry staff, some news and notes on that. A couple of notes on the new offensive coordinator, Ty Howle, some of the stuff we're hearing. Obviously, off the top of the open, almost speechless as more details are coming out here at 8:30. I'm not sure, obviously, as we're going live here, but some news on the Sherrone Moore fallout and recruiting and how that could affect Virginia Tech, how that affects all of college football, and what seems to be a rapidly situation that it just seems pretty upsetting on multiple fronts. Get into a couple notes on the transfer portal and then questions and answers. So appreciate all the support on the show. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. Right before this, obviously it works out actually really nice. Virginia Tech signee, cornerback Amari Polidor up at St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, Maryland, is playing in the national championship game for high school, the overtime national championship game on ESPN2. So seeing some of his footwork and game out there, obviously has not been targeted in the game, but that's a good sign when you're playing DB. So getting to watch some of him, obviously this falls nicely at halftime. After the show, if you want to go watch that back, that's a good outlet. But yeah, like I said, make sure to subscribe to the show, like the video, comment. We'll try and touch on all those as we get into it. But yeah, thank you so much. Let's have a good show. And first off, I guess just off the top of the show, let's get into a little bit of a staff catch-up. And, in talking to different people today, it's really easy to get lost in the weeds on some of these things when you start to jump into a coaching search. Excuse me. So as details continue to come out, it can be hard to stay in the know. And over on VT Scoop, I think done a really good job. Pinned at the top of the profile, or they're running 50% off through the end of the year, 50% off on vtscoop.com for the inside the tunnel message boards, all the message board features, VIP content. It's a really great place to be, but also specifically for a staff tracker because people have jobs. I know, crazy, but it gets really busy. And when there's new hires every day, every hour, every second, it's a great place to be caught up on all the latest without having to try and piece together what's real and what's not. So over there, pinned on vtscoop.com, like I said, running 50% off, but they've got a staff tracker. So just a brief catch up if you've missed it and you're just catching up. So at offensive coordinator, you have Ty Howle, obviously the tight ends coach and co-OC coming down from Penn State. At defensive coordinator, Brent Pry, the former Virginia Tech head coach, who probably doesn't need much introduction to the audience joined here tonight. The next, obviously, position that has been locked in there is the quarterbacks coach, Danny O'Brien, coming from Penn State. That news came out late again last night. We'll have a couple anecdotes on that. And then on the back end, I know there's questions. The personnel staff, general manager Andy Frank, chief of staff Kevin Threlkel, both those guys, obviously longtime James Franklin employees, someone that they're familiar with, and then just more back end staff. And on the strength and conditioning front, sounds like Jarrett Ferguson will likely be back in some role. But there's all the personnel, all the unknown titles, back-end staff over there on vtscoop.com. If that's something you're interested in, I highly recommend it because there's going to be a ton of new names added over there that are unfamiliar. But as of right now, on the field, offensive coordinator Ty Howle, defensive coordinator Brent Pry, quarterbacks coach Danny O'Brien, and then all the personnel names listed over there. And as those become official and there's more details out, that will be continuously updated. So it's a really great outlet. But I guess first going into that, Danny O'Brien, obviously the quarterbacks coach coming over from Penn State. That was the news last night, and it was mixed reaction, honestly. When you go out and you hire an unexperienced offensive coordinator in Ty Howle, I think a lot of people were really leaning into the fact that you could go out and maybe pair that with a more experienced quarterback coach. But at the same time, what experienced quarterback coach most likely is not going to be calling the plays? I think that's something that's definitely going to be sort of an interesting dynamic to work with. So that kind of makes sense that they go out and get Danny O'Brien. I think it's really interesting. He was a 2010 ACC Rookie of the Year at Maryland, playing under one James Franklin, who was his offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. So he had an interesting playing career, was obviously had a great first season, dealt with some injuries. I think he had 5 touchdowns in a game with Torrey Smith one time. But, some career injuries, transfers. but that's obviously the connection with James Franklin. So finished his career, and once he finished, I think he joined with Penn State as an analyst. At one point, he was living above the garage at James Franklin's house, so they're obviously very, very close. Became the grad assistant and worked his way up to the quarterback coach. Franklin has had very positive remarks about him on the record about thinking he's a rising star. Obviously, like I said, lived above his garage, it sounds like, at one point. So they're obviously very close, and, people will do with that what they will. But someone who's been rising in the ranks, and you can point to Drew Aller, and that's been a lot of the discussion over on the message board that I was promoting earlier. And it's been a very lively discussion today and throughout the week, honestly, about Drew Aller and his progression and how a lot of that fell under, obviously, O'Brien's tutelage. And you can point to Virginia Tech's quarterback play of late and ideal quarterback play and say Drew Aller still was a very, very quality college quarterback. Drew Aller was very complimentary of O'Brien on multiple occasions in my research today. Said he, made it sort of slow down, just be able to read the coverages, sort of be that bridge the gap. So someone who's been doing it now for a couple seasons, but he really sort of started as that in-game liaison between the offensive coordinator, Mike Yurcich, I believe, who was up there, and then obviously building connection with the quarterbacks on the sideline. That was when Bo Pribula was still there with Aller as well. So it'll be really interesting. Obviously, he's a younger guy. I believe he's only 33, so, can relate to them. But it'll be very interesting. And at the same time, just even spitballing here, thinking about it, do they go and, he had an assistant quarterback coach also, Trace McSorley, someone might be familiar with, obviously, guy who has a very song written about him, but also had a good career up at Penn State, became the assistant quarterback coach this year. Is that someone they look to follow down? Because I think you'll see some more trickle down from the Penn State coaching staff as well. But definitely when the O'Brien news came out, there was a lot of notes and reactions there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think, the quarterback coach hire is really important, but honestly, the quarterback you go out and get is going to be the most important. I feel like I've been beating that drum, and it's really no secret about you can only go as far as your quarterback. And, when that portal window opens on January 2nd, vtscoop.com, those message boards, when the portal palooza opens up and you get the board out in front of you, that's going to be a very, very interesting place to be, as you can go as far as your quarterback and you don't have to look too far. Look to the season with Kyron Drones and see, took him about as far as Virginia Tech could have gone this year. And it's going to be the biggest emphasis point to get that position right. And this is a guy that obviously Franklin is very familiar with. I keep going back to it. I look forward to hopefully having one or either on the show and talking about the anecdote of living above his garage, because that's pretty interesting. You've heard pretty crazy GA stories, but moving in with Franklin for a time there is a pretty interesting note. And we'll see how it plays out, because that room is going to have massive overhaul and he's going to have his fingerprints all over it. So that'll be really interesting. Got more people tuning in here. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, touching on some of the new hires, retention, some notes, and then we'll jump into a large portion of Q&A tonight. So then sticking with retention, I've heard, obviously came on the show Monday night and talked about Fontel Mines, Matt Moore, sort of their connection to Virginia Tech. And in the recent days, I've heard, obviously, with some things going at the running back position, have heard positive momentum for Elijah Brooks, trying potentially being retained on Ty Howle's offensive staff. It sounds like there's some things in the work there. Drayton, the running back coach at Penn State, sounds like he's going to go down and coach with Beamer at South Carolina. Obviously, this is pretty late breaking, but dealing with the whole Michigan Sherrone Moore ordeal, Tony Alford, the running back coach that has a history with Franklin, is that a name that pops up? Obviously, that would be an incredible hire, and there's not much to that. It's just, it's 8:30 as putting things together just off the top of my head. That one, have not heard much there. But obviously, Elijah Brooks is the incumbent on staff. Have heard that he will probably have an interview here semi-soon. I think they've already had initial talks, it sounds like. But I think that would be a name to watch. Obviously, Mines, Moore, and potentially Brooks, as that running back position, coach position, has been a little bit up in the air. But, he might have himself a good chance at retaining his job. Now, obviously, with the exits, we've talked a lot about pretty much the entire defensive staff being let go. And also today, obviously, on X, cornerbacks coach Derek Cheetah Jones obviously posted that video and announced it on his own that he was let go and parted ways with Virginia Tech. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there at the cornerbacks coach position. Obviously, they took a pretty big swing at Terry Smith. And like I said, this one as well with the Alford is just trying to put two and two together and hearing things from way off channel. If I come on here and typically say something there's a little bit more legs behind it. Torian Gray down at South Carolina, I don't personally foresee that happening. You're just hearing a couple notes potentially from people down there, but we'll see. I don't really foresee that happening, but there's definitely something to play out. So dump any questions in the live chat. We'll touch on those and think about it. That's just sort of what I have in my notes. On the offensive coordinator specifically, I think this is pretty interesting. Obviously, Penn State is still preparing for the Pinstripe Bowl in late December. Ty Howle, the offensive coordinator, was announced a couple days ago. We did that rapid reaction live stream. You can go check that on the channel down below. Went about 20 minutes, pretty good analysis, questions and answers about what to expect with him. He was in Blacksburg yesterday, it sounds like, or in the last couple days, sort of just trying to get the lay of the land. Obviously, it's going to be really important for him to start building out his staff and getting that all squared away. But it sounds like he was in Blacksburg, not conducting interviews or anything. I think some of those will be done in more long form, but it does sound like he was in Blacksburg. So touchdown, getting the lay of the land. I think that's really important because, it's going to be more expensive to move some of these guys before the bowl game, but to get a coordinator in place ahead of the portal so he can start to try and lay the foundation. Obviously, Brent Pry is very familiar already. Some of the notes. Make sure to subscribe to the show, like the video. Just a crazy day in college football, As we go into this next section, it's such a delicate situation, and I don't know the live details coming out. But, what at one time looked to be, I don't want to say harmless, but a more lighthearted ordeal has turned into, obviously, a more serious issue up in Ann Arbor, Michigan with Sherrone Moore. Obviously, it sounds like there were some relationships that were not professional and have caused some issues and have caused some, obviously, even real life issues. So, going to dance around that. Obviously, you can look to reporting on websites about what's going on with Sherrone Moore in Michigan. He's obviously been let go by the university, fired for cause. But tying in with Michigan, it's obviously there is a tie to Virginia Tech in recruiting as what we've been covering on. They had 3 high school signings from the state of Virginia this year, 2 that Virginia Tech was involved with down the stretch. Made contact with a couple of those guys. So to keep an eye on Andre Clark, cornerback from Hermitage in Richmond, Virginia. And you can go check out these VIP threads over on vtscoop.com. I think a lot of these, just based on initial reaction, is just shock from the recruits. Obviously, it's a interesting situation, but I think he said it was just a bad day in the big house. Talking to 4-star, top 247 wide receiver as well, Travis Johnson from Chesapeake, Virginia, who Virginia Tech was really in it down the stretch with on signing day. Both those guys obviously signed with Michigan. Said, it's crazy. Shock, had no heads up, no warning. Now he says he still plans to early enroll. Obviously, a lot can change. It's fresh, but those are 2 notes there. And I think you're really just sort of speechless, and it kind of shows how easy it is to get lost in the mix of things. You can be just earlier in the day. It seems like the most important thing in the world is arguing about, or you got 12 or 16 teams, and then you hear news like that, and it's just not losing the principle of what this is all about, And now there's a whole compensation element. It's completely changed. But at the end of the day, you're trying to foster 18 to 22-year-old young men and send them into the world. And it just seems like, it's really – and it's this has been happening forever at the collegiate football level where there's been grand malpractice. But it just seems like, man, we're really losing the guiding principle, North Star, hands on the wheel about what this is all about. I'm not sure how you get it back, but, just some – tough reporting out as we went live here. I'm not sure what's coming out. I'm sure more will come out, but just a really upsetting situation for a lot of parties involved in the Sherrone Moore ordeal in Michigan. We'll see if there's any reverb or ripple effects that bounce back to Virginia Tech. Obviously in the recruiting ranks, obviously in the transfer portal, I'm sure you'll see quite a bit of moves there. Brandon Hillman, Shamari Earl, some of those other Virginia guys who were up there on Michigan. That's just speculation, but just thinking about that as it's coming on is going to be the story of arguably the offseason after some of the reporting coming out. So a really sad ordeal, but make sure to stay tuned into vtscoop.com, this YouTube channel, to hear that, because after signing your letter of intent, you can't like just flip like it's a transfer portal. So it'd have to be a late cycle. If you're an early enrollee, that would get murky, but definitely something to watch. But yeah, I mean, just wow, what a crazy situation when you see some of those details start to trickle out. Yeah, I mean, with the portal notes, talked about a little bit with Ty Howle. Those tight ends coming down from Penn State, some smoke around Luke Reynolds, Matt Henderson, those two guys. Obviously, having a good connection with him, keep an eye on them. Virginia Tech is still going through conversations with guys to see future with the team. You know, I think they have today was maybe the last day of lifts, and then they're off, I think, until winter workouts for finals. And obviously, they're giving the break off. Maybe it's tomorrow. But, you know, working through those conversations about what's next, exit meeting, future talks about retention, portal, going to go feel out suitors, and just projection. So we'll have some of those insight from those talks, it sounds like, on vtscoop.com. But yeah, I think those are some of those takeaways. When the O'Brien news broke last night, I was next to some people who would probably be slightly interested in that, and some interesting reactions. So for all the portal scoops, make sure to go over to vtscoop.com. We're still a ways off from speculating on some of those names, as there's still a lot to play out before January 2nd. But I think you'll start to see that heat up here relatively soon. But yep, I would say go over to vtscoop.com. Pinned at the top is the staff transfer portal tracker if you've lost any of that. Obviously, Danny O'Brien, the quarterback's coach, get into that. The running back coach, Elijah Brooks, is trending that way. Howle was in Blacksburg. And then just tracking those recruits with Sherrone Moore in that situation. Honestly, a little bit, it's like you're almost just at a loss for words when you really get brought down to earth. Like at the end of the day, it's a game on the field, but it's some really crazy stuff hearing from people firsthand or close to the situation, people up there working in that building. So, yeah, can really sober you up, I guess. Anyways, let's hop into the Q&A. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for all the support. We got the audio fixed, hopefully. I know we've been struggling back in the semi-usual studio. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, jump in the comments. I'll answer as much as I can. And, yeah, appreciate you guys. Amari Smith, college football is nuts. Yeah, man. I mean, obviously talking about Sherrone Moore in that situation went from obviously people making jokes on the internet to, as more details come out, just a really sad situation all around is what it looks like. But, yeah, I mean, you can point to that. You can point to what's happening out in Vegas about conference commissioners talking about going from 12 to 16, and then obviously getting all these people in front of microphones and cameras to say, well, I mean, 16's not that bad. Look, Vanderbilt and all these teams could get in. And obviously, you know, once they say that, or even if they don't know that they're getting petitioned to say that and they're getting in front of cameras and saying that, it's like, oh, well, 16 to 18 is not bad and 18 to 24 is not bad. It's like, oh, well, the hard line's at 24. It's like if you keep giving, they're going to take everything. And that's I don't see how people can't see that. Of like just rapid expansion. Like you go from 4 to 12 to 16 in a couple of years, and that's where it stops. Like, I don't know. At some point, you're going to have a 28-game season, and guys are just going to start getting really, really hurt. And it's going to be like, okay, corporate greed can't take over. Maybe a little bit of corporate greed is what really led to bigger issues up in Ann Arbor. You know, like let's not lose the plot here. Let's not lose the plot. But yeah. I don't know. It's just been a really crazy day just talking with people up there. But, yeah, D-Hill talking about it. Like, this is going to dominate headlines. I know this is obviously a college football show, but predominantly covering Virginia Tech, talking about stuff. But Sherrone Moore, I mean, like, it is going to have a spider web effect. I mean, that coaching community is tight and small, and, you know, this webs out and touches a lot of people. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, the latest reporting I saw right before I went live, it's just not good. It's all around not good. Got Amari Smith talking about, I touched on this a little bit, so as I go back in the questions, but I'll touch on it again for anyone who's just joining. I appreciate everyone in here. I mean, this means the world. But could we get those Virginia recruits from Michigan then? Like I touched on, I think the two that you could really watch for the recruiting side are Andre Clark and Travis Johnson. Travis Johnson, initially on signing day, was the one that it probably got closest down the stretch with, the Chesapeake top 247 wide receiver. Going to be playing for a state championship this weekend, I believe. I have to double check. I don't think it was last weekend, but yeah, I believe it's this weekend. Obviously, a really great player. Virginia Tech made it very close and interesting there on signing day. got a VIP note on him over on the website about sort of just his initial reactions from the Sherrone Moore news, which is jarring. I think it was jarring to everyone. Like all the recruits pretty much across the board were caught way off guard, completely in the dark. I think it's very jarring when you're signing on to make a life-changing decision, and there's a rug pull that dramatic. So I think there's a lot to play out there. I don't think anything's definitive on that situation. Andre Clark, I didn't get the most response from him, but he was someone that sort of entertained Virginia Tech down the stretch. Went to the same high school as Fontel Mines, has a really great relationship there. Someone they recruited very hard down the stretch. Both those guys have been to campus multiple times. So definitely keep an eye on it. The timing is weird now that you signed your letter of intent and they plan to early enroll, so it could get a little messy. But, talk about a little messy. Got Ashton saying I'm in Kabuki right now, but had to tune in my favorite show. Go Coolest Corner. Appreciate it, man. Always tuning in. That means the world. Dedicated viewer. Shout out P1. Got Denzel Jones saying, I know these are people that Franklin trusts, but it did not work out at Penn State, so don't need to repeat that. I presume you're talking about Danny O'Brien as a quarterback coach. I think there's a nuance and a measured approach to that. You did see positive improvement from Drew Aller, I think, year over year. Obviously, he was a 5-star top guy in the class. Did he live up to that potential? Probably not. And I think he would probably tell you he didn't accomplish everything in college that he wanted to. But there's also a quarterback, albeit an offense that really had no dynamic receivers or couldn't open up the receiver position, that still had an offense that took them to the national semifinal. And I know it was all pretty much from one tight end with 100-plus catches, and that's great and all, but still, in this day and age of college football, you don't get that far without a quarterback that can take you to that level. And to get to the college football semifinal to win 13 games in a season, and I know there's so many people that want to play 20 games based on this 24 playoff. Like the fact that they played I think they played 14 games and they didn't even make it to the national championship is just absurd to me. But anyways, we're getting lost in the sauce here. But yeah, he's inexperienced. You can point to that. He's only worked at Penn State. You can point to that. But this is someone that Franklin trusts. He's going to bring him in. A lot of people, they've made the tie-in of, well, Franklin went out and got Kotelnicki, and he went out and got Jim Knowles, and both those guys sort of led to his demise. And when he had the most success, it was guys who were homegrown. So obviously turns back to Brent Pry, turns to Ty Howle, someone he's had attached at the hip for close to 5 years now. Same with Danny O'Brien. He's only worked at Penn, or has only been with him at Penn State. So I think there's nuance there, but it's not going to change the facts of it. I think the rest of the hires will be really interesting, what they do with support staff, some off-the-field analysts. I think that'll be interesting to see. Got Randall B. Gervern 1153. My bad for butchering the username. Is Price out, or will he be in another position? It sounds like J.C. Price is definitely out off the field. I guess it's TBD to see if he goes to a more admin role, but it sounds like he will be not on the field. Got Andrew Check saying, and this is what a lot of people are asking, so it's a good question. Sort of touched on it Monday. Why haven't the coordinators been officially announced yet? There's layers to that as well. Part of that, I think, is probably prize buyout situation. Part of that is probably Howle and his situation at Penn State and working through those contract figures and, the bowl bonus and all those things. Are they going to make an announcement where it's both Howle and Pry together? Are they going to make an announcement where it's Howle, Pry, and O'Brien together? Are they going to make an announcement where it's Howle, Pry, O'Brien, and someone else? Are they waiting for that? Once it comes out through sourcing and national reporters, it's like they're going to beat the school every time. So the school is really not going to be breaking the news or officially reporting it. It's just now at their point when it's out there, there's really no rush. And at this point, obviously, until having, I guess, officially these guys in place before January 2nd does you no good. Because like I said, and talking to Travis Johnson and talking to Andre Clark, it's the dead period. So like, what are you going to do? You're going to get released from your letter of intent and know you have schools interested, but not be able to talk. It's a very interesting time right now. I mean, it shouldn't be interesting. It's Christmas season. Like, lean into that. And college football is leaning into all the wrong things in a time where, you should be reflecting and looking at a lot more important things. But anyways, I digress. Good Amari Smith. What about the A&M D-line coach, Coach Chaos, Sean Spencer? A lot of news and smoke there around Sean Spencer. Obviously has a really great relationship with Brent Pry, great relationship with James Franklin. Talked about this on the show Monday as well. That's another dynamic situation because they'll be playing Miami in that first play-in game. So if they go on to win that game and they go on to keep winning, I guess the 7 seed would play. If the 7 wins, I can't think about it in my head right now, but it would be one of – would they play Ohio State or Georgia? One of those, whatever. I guess they'd go on to play, and if they keep winning, that sort of changes the calculus. But I think there's definitely smoke there. That'd be an incredible hire for Brent Pry to bring onto his defense, someone he's tried to bring over. But there's a whole lot difference between playing under James Franklin and honestly, I think I said on Monday, playing under Brent Pry. And you got a lot more money behind you, so you can use that in the staff salary pool as an incentive and to sort of come back with people you're more familiar with or friends with. I think that'd be interesting. But yeah, nothing really new to report there at this moment. Ron Judy sort of just asked the same question. Hokey Dude sort of just answered that as well. Got Austie5422 saying, any more info on Brooks? I would say things are trending that way to be retained. But like I said, the Michigan news is really fresh. Who knows what Tony Alford does? Obviously, he's probably the best running. Honestly, I think it's probably unanimous, the best running back coach in America. Has connections with James Franklin. There's absolutely no intel on that. I'm just piecing 2 and 2 together right here at 8:58 on December 10th, year for our Lord 2025. So that'd be interesting. I would say Brooks is probably going that way. It sounds like he'll be slotted to have an interview or an official interview with Howle. It sounds like they talked when Howle was in town, but an official interview with him here in the coming days to, I guess, verify an opinion on that. But yeah, that'll definitely be something to watch. But I would say there's been an upswing in momentum for Brooks in the last couple days. Got C. Jackson. Good question here. Update on Anthony Poindexter, Tennessee defensive coordinator Tim Banks, and Chaos from Texas A&M. On Dex, I think they're still going to be pushing for that, as we touched on Monday. No real update there. Tennessee defensive coordinator Tim Banks, I don't think that he will come over. I know some people slotted him for the cornerbacks coach, but I mean, he's someone who's up for potential head coaching gigs at the G6 level, it looks like. And we just touched on Coach Chaos. I have not heard much on Tim Banks. So I don't see that one happening and don't have an update on Poindexter, but there is interest there, obviously, to coach safeties and then potentially get that co-DC tag, whatever that means. And obviously, Sean Spencer, they're still sort of in a holding pattern up there. Yeah, the Hokies 09 sort of mentioned it in that opening transfer portal thing about Brennan Hillman. Got obviously Notre Dame and then flipped to Michigan late. It'll be really interesting to see. That's a tough situation. The news comes out after signing day. All those guys sign their letter of intent. That portal period is going to look a whole lot different on January 2nd now with the news. So I don't know. I mean, obviously the Virginia connection, they've got money to spend in the portal. They're going to be really aggressive. But yeah, it's early to speculate. I think a lot of those people are just trying to get their bearings. And talking very early to a couple of Virginia recruits, it's pretty jarring, the Sherrone Moore situation and the way it was sort of dumped on them. So I think there's going to be still a lot of fallout from that. Got Gabe saying, I came in late again, but any update on Adrian Ace Hamilton? He flipped to Michigan, didn't he? Yeah, it's funny, man. I've seen Ace play a couple times live, and it's funny because we were just watching Amari Polidor on ESPN2 on the same field. It's right outside the Under Armour's headquarters in Baltimore on that same field. And just this year, Ace Hamilton in May, I believe, won MVP honors at the UA Baltimore camp, playing center. He's obviously a really good player. Took his last official visit. Was it official visit or unofficial? I forgot what it was, but visited Michigan for the game. And, things have been trending that way, that Sherrone Moore and, yeah, I mean, it's crazy even just saying, but like Sherrone Moore and those guys, they were interested and they liked him and they wanted to flip him. They obviously end up flipping him that last weekend from Virginia Tech with the instability of Pry leaving, the indecision about Matt Moore. He loved Matt Moore. And, while things looked a little bit more murky, while it sounds like Matt Moore will most likely be retained now, that'll be interesting because I know at St. John's, I believe he thinks to early enroll, but now the next signing period is in February. So you'd have to get out of your letter of intent and then work through red tape there. It's going to change a lot of plans for a lot of people. We will be monitoring that on vtscoop.com. But here on Wednesday, December 10th, right before I went live, he was not one of the people I was able to catch up with to get a reaction. But that's someone you could potentially see. And especially if Matt Moore is to officially return on, I think that greatly helps Virginia Tech's chances. And when you look at the class they brought in, obviously 7 guys on the offensive line, which is amazing. It's incredible. I've pointed and highlighted out for numerous years now. Ron Crook did honestly kind of irreparable damage bringing 5 offensive linemen over 2 cycles. That's a recipe for disaster to a unit that was already struggling and struggled honestly the entire time under Brent Pry. So to be able to flip that aggressively with 7 guys, but most of those guys I think project as offensive tackles. You probably see Roseby, Labindis, Purgatory probably moving inside, Ben Azuka probably moving inside, but Ace Hamilton's pretty much a center all the way. Someone who's really good in that DMV area, probably one of the best interior offensive linemen in that area, going up against really good competition. So, yeah, I think that would be someone to watch, but I don't have a feel on that situation right now, and I don't know if they even have a feel on it. It's all very fresh coming out. I think it's fresh for everyone and like people who aren't even directly affected by the situation. Got D Blocks, 82. Any current players looking to get an additional year of eligibility? I wouldn't say current players that are like looking for the extra year of eligibility. Obviously, the whole James DeJoncum situation went down earlier in the year, and he obviously didn't have another year of eligibility. So it sounds like he and whoever might trying to be fighting for that. I'm not sure how that'll work out. It seems like you can sue for anything these days. I know Nick Velsissis went on X and was talking about potentially getting another year. The punter. Obviously, everyone's trying to maximize that, but I don't foresee or have heard anything real concrete or actual about anyone trying to get another year of eligibility. Good question, though. Got the Aussie family saying, strange hiring ex-head coach for defensive coordinator and tight end coach for offensive coordinator. What will show real investment the transfer brings in? If they bring in little to none, it could be a while before results show on the field. Yeah, and I think this goes back to everyone's favorite notion. It's about the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. Defenses work a lot better when you have the more talent. Offenses run a lot better when you have better players on the field. So, and I think they're going to spend pretty aggressively. Either way, and I've said on here, I think you're going to see close to 20 to 30 portal guys, and arguably maybe even upwards of 35 to 40 potentially. It's going to be a massive overhaul. They're going to be very targeted in the way they spend, but they're going to attack it. And, they understand that. Kurt Signetti is always going to be the benchmark now. Like, you have to win early. This team went 3-9. So you understand the talent level that you have, the talent level that you have to get to. This is someone who went 13-1. A year ago? He understands the talent level that it takes to play big boy college football and get to that level. Be a play away from going to the national championship game. I think Franklin understands the assignment. He's staring down something that's a really big challenge, but I mean, he's obviously assembling a staff that he thinks fit to do it and has done it in recent years. So I think that has to give Virginia Tech shareholders some good feeling, but there's a lot of dominoes. And I think this next question ties into that. Got HansViz7180. Appreciate the super chat. Buzz with Sam Leavitt, real or not? I have not heard real buzz around Sam Leavitt. Obviously, the Arizona State quarterback transfer. Sounds like there's not going to say a handler. His brother is his agent, and sounds like that murkies the waters, has maybe made a couple institutions a little bit gun shy in dealing in that operation. College football agency is obviously a lot different than NFL agency with certifications and just the way things go. Been some weird handlings on the back end of that. Obviously it was publicized about not going to the team banquet and such, being one of the captains. So just some tough optics there. And I have not heard much with Virginia Tech being involved, but have heard just some odd handlings on the behind the scenes there, but have not heard Virginia Tech having a real interest in Sam Leavitt as of this moment. Now, anything is to play out. The quarterback market is going to be crazy when all these teams sort of get a clear picture after the playoffs and bowl game where they stand. If there are guys leaving, staying, retaining, leaving, and when all the options are out on the board, and as they start to sort of put the puzzle pieces together, that's when it's going to start to become more clear on who your actual targets are. But it's a really good question, and we will be monitoring that because obviously, I feel like I said at the top of the show, the quarterback can take you as far or further than your quarterback coach hired. And now you want one to pair well with the other, but you really got to get that quarterback position right. But good question. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you. Got Heath Hyatt saying, my bad, saying 147. Have you heard about any of our players staying? I think, people are worried about a lot of the true freshman guys. I think you'll see pretty good returns there. I think the guys that James Franklin ideally wants to keep on the roster, he will have a pretty good chance at. This is not going to be a situation like last year where Virginia Tech was not going to be willing to spend. Obviously, Xavier Chaplin hit the portal. Braylon Moore hit the portal. Mansour Delane hit the portal. And Virginia Tech just was not willing to spend to obviously keep some of their top-tier talent on the team. I don't think this is going to be that situation. Now, that's not to say that they won't be targeted and give quality players whatever they want to come back. I think they're just going to be very nuanced and targeted on the guys, and I think you'll see pretty good retention rates of the players that you want. But like I said, let's not remiss that this team did go 3-9. So it's going to be a pretty massive overhaul to try and get over that hump to where James Franklin's vision of Virginia Tech is, and he has his full hands on the wheel. He wants his fingerprints on everything, really not siphoning off or delegating off much, kind of having control on a lot of it. And, I think that ties into facilities. I think that ties into just processes. Like, he's taking a 1,000-foot view on everything, and like the best coaches can compartmentalize. And this guy seems hyper fixated on looking at everything and making a radical change early on facilities, processes, like the way that building's been locked down. This is someone who has come in and made pretty radical shifts, which is impressive in such a short amount of time. And half his staff's like right down the road here at the inn still, So it's pretty crazy what him and some of that back end staff has been able to accomplish. I'm sure a lot of long hours, and they're staring down a lot. Obviously, probably get some good time off here around Christmas, but right back to hitting the grind there before the portal, and hopefully building out that staff before then. But yeah, I think the retention should not be the biggest concern. But good question. Sort of went on a little tangent there. Appreciate all the questions in the live chat. You guys always make it super entertaining. So thank you guys. Got Christopher Martin saying, just joining. I'll try and give you a little refresh. Any news? Who's the next coach coming in? Who's retained? I would say for the retention note, Elijah Brooks at running back. Seems like there's some positive there. Fontel Mines at receiver, potentially moving to tight end, but just that name, and Matt Moore potentially staying on the offensive line. Those seem like some pretty solid retention notes. Jarrett Ferguson in the strength and conditioning. Probably not to be the head guy, but to stay on down there. Sounds like there's some smoke there. I would say those are some names to watch. Now, as for the next coach coming in, we'll see. I think it might slow down a little bit, honestly, as Virginia Tech weighs on potential games ending, because, these buyouts ahead of bowls obviously has, some coaches are still playing in the tournaments. So I think you might see a little bit delay on that. Got Matthew Brown. I think this is a really good point that some people were making over on the message board. I saw right before I clicked over here. Don't understand how people are upset about the hires because most coaches bring their staffs with them anyway. True. And also a year ago, Virginia Tech would have gladly traded staffs with Penn State. And I think that's where you can get so lost in the sauce. Like, you get the big emotional high win of getting James Franklin as your head coach, and it's all this, and you expect to go pull the Jim Knowles-esque hire where it's someone who's done it and experienced and that big top dollar. And then people who have never called a play or whatever, and rightful reservations on a lot of the stuff. And it could still not work for sure. But at the same time, and I know the same people who are complaining now were probably complaining about Cheetah. And some of the guys on the offensive staff, and last year under Pry. But that's not to say that Virginia Tech obviously probably wasn't staffed up to the T's last year. But I think Penn State was obviously in a better position, and Franklin's shown the ability to do it at a high level. Obviously, he got fired, so people have reservations about that. But relatively, I think winning 10 games in the last 3 years before this year when he got fired, I think in the modern age of college football, there's still a pretty solid sample size. So, like I said, the attention to detail, just being on the outside of it, but hearing from people directly involved and just seeing some of the radical change that is going on. From every level, processes as small as let's just say the janitor process, everything is being evaluated. There's really no corner being cut, no shortcut being taken. Got Shane Gibson, yep. Got Blank Ruckus saying, obviously, Salem, Virginia, Chris Cole, linebacker, potentially entering the transfer portal. I've not heard that and do not project that. Really, really quality player who's had a nice season down there at Georgia. I would only expect to see his role increase down there. I would not expect him to hit the portal. Obviously, someone who has regional, locational value to Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech tried to take a big swing, but I don't see that happening. Got Denzel Jones saying wide receiver coach is a position that he's looking forward to most. We need someone to develop playmakers. Obviously, Marcus Hagan's brought that up on the show earlier, potentially up at Penn State, and there's been mixed reviews on him. Penn State, if you want to point to anything, they've had NFL talent come through the league. Obviously, for Virginia Tech, well about Keandre Lambert-Smith coming from Maury. They've developed quite a few guys. KJ, I'm blanking on the names, but they've obviously developed quite a few NFL receivers. But, in years of late, that's probably been the biggest point in Penn State's offense about something that you've left to be desired, because they've recruited really good wide receivers. It's just have they develop them, have they utilize them to the rate that you would expect. Even in the portal this year, going out and get a Pena and some different players, probably didn't utilize them to their extent. And I think you could say that with Virginia Tech. Look at what Kyron Drones this year. Severely limited guys like Aiden Green and different players. So I think that's really interesting, is having to give those guys the opportunity with the right, obviously, quarterback, and then putting those players in good positions to make plays. But yeah, the wide receiver development, you've been waiting for Brody Adams to pop, getting healthy next year. That's someone who you have on the shelf. You bring in a couple quality guys, a Fat Rat. You still have Snook Peterkin, some of these names that are sort of waiting in the wings, but you haven't really seen yet. So, the guys are there. It's just continual development and actually seeing them roll out on the football field. They've got good playmakers. It's just make sure you get a guy back there that can deliver the ball, have a good scheme, and let the playmakers go make plays, Hansvise saying that Sam Lovett buzz real. Touched on that just a little bit earlier. Have not heard much there, but that situation does seem a little interesting. Mari Smith saying, any big names from VT that will enter the portal? That's a pretty definitive statement. Like a lot of things, there's nuance. People can think one thing and do the next. As of right now, haven't heard any real big name 100% in, 100% out. There are a couple names that I think would be relatively big that it wouldn't exactly shock me. These guys, I don't know if people are aware. I think most would be, if you follow college football, that, the portal's not open, but they or their representatives have been contacted pretty much probably since week 2 or even prior to that, or consistently by other teams about their services and potentially entering the transfer portal. So a lot of these players have very heavy interest. Aiden Green is being contacted by multiple teams. Benji Gosnell is being contacted by multiple teams. Pretty much anyone you can point to. Caleb Woodson is being contacted by multiple teams. Harrison at tight end. Who else? Everyone. Copeland. Copeland's got the NFL, like Marcellus Hawkins. All these guys are being contacted. Maybe not them directly, but their representatives for sure. And, you're hearing the interest. And it's that shouldn't surprise anyone. And that's really not a hot button, hot take issue. It's just, it's the way college football is. Until you get someone and an actual governing body in there, you'll just have that, like, it's accepted as normal that these guys are here at Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, and we're getting ready for finals and having their services being courted by other competitors. It's just the way of the world, and it's a lot to weigh, but it's pretty crazy. But as of right now, no. Appreciate all the comments. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let's keep this thing rolling. I'm going to try and keep getting better production as we roll on through the offseason. It's going to get so busy here with the coaching carousel and obviously the transfer portal. Got Hokie and Clifton saying portal will be key at skill positions. Definitely, but I mean, you've still got a lot of the skill positions. Tight end, I think definitely the tight end in the portal is going to be really big, knowing Howle's connection, some of those names we've brought up on the show, Luke Reynolds, Matt Henderson, some of those other guys, Andrew Olesh potentially. But I mean, the wide receiver position, you still got some guys sort of waiting in the wings. But, at Penn State, you got a Matthew Outen, obviously a guy who at IC Norcom and Portsmouth committed to Virginia Tech, decommitted, went to Penn State. You got a couple of names up there. At the running back position, I know obviously Fat Man, Katron Allen, and Nick Singleton are both out of eligibility. But, I mean, even just beyond Penn State, there's a lot of other guys to look. But, I mean, the potential of bringing back Hawkins and Overton, and you've got a pretty deep wide receiver room depending on how it shakes out. But, I mean, there's going to be a lot of overturn. So, yeah, but I think the portal will be honestly more key along the offensive line, defensive line, those positions, cornerback, linebacker, I guess everywhere. Got Prometheus back in here. Appreciate seeing a lot of the same posters always. That's really nice to see. So appreciate all the support. Make sure to share the show with a friend. If you enjoy it, share the show with a friend. Text it to people that you think would also enjoy it. I'm hoping for Sam Levitt. Do you think Virginia Tech could get a quarterback of his magnitude or his caliber? Yeah, 100%. I think Virginia Tech, if they don't get a quarterback on that tier or caliber, it was not an effective or successful offseason transfer portal market. Like, that's why you make that investment to go out and get a game-changing guy. And I think Virginia Tech's willing and able to go make a big swing. Now, I'm not saying it's Sam Levitt, but at his level, yeah, I think Virginia Tech will go out and get a playmaker that's comparable to his level to go run an offense. Got Shane Gibson talking about Colton Joseph is the best option. Obviously there's smoke there locationally, regionally, coach-wise connection. That'll be something to monitor. Heading back for a break here, might try and set something up. Still working through some things, but yeah, it's something to watch. Gabe saying, do we have a good feel about how these hires are viewed nationally? Sometimes an outside look is a good thing. Yeah, I think nationally there's probably a little bit of skepticism, or at least that's some of the early returns. Brent Pry, when you look at Brent Pry, most people would look at it really positive, but nationally the perspective is like, ooh, that's a little weird. He was just the head coach there. And I think locally it's sort of the same feeling, but I think everyone is looking at that one as a little interesting. Ty Howle, same thing, where it's like promoting someone. Everyone has to become a first-time coordinator or first-time play caller. And I think he's very highly regarded and probably would have got a shot at another place to go be an offensive coordinator. And it sounds like relatively soon from some different institutions. But, I mean, that's a big jump to go from Penn State co-OC to Virginia Tech offensive coordinator. It's a pretty big first leap. I think he would have eventually gotten an opportunity and maybe built up to the Power 4 level. But, yeah, I think it's interesting. And, people are also saying it's interesting, but it's not something like Franklin hasn't done before. And I think most people on the national ranks are like, okay, we'll trust Franklin until not given a reason to, because, we just did the Kodal, Nicky, and Knowles experiment. And that didn't work. So we'll see. Got VT15 Hokie saying, any rumblings on trying to get assistance from Michigan? Lamar Morgan worked obviously with Franklin and Pry. Like I said, that is a very fresh situation right before I click to go live here. We'll be monitoring that. Obviously, Alfred has good connections with Franklin. We'll be monitoring that. That's really fresh. I think everyone's just trying to get their bearings up there. That will be something to watch, though. Got Denzel Jones saying, yeah, I think that's a really great point. Not to be rude, but it was a 3-9 team doesn't care who stays. Yeah, like retention, I don't think you're going to be too butthurt about, that like there's going to be a massive overhaul because you have to infuse a lot more talent to get to where James Franklin wants to get Virginia Tech to. That's why you pony up all this investment into the program, is because the standard obviously was not the standard, and you have to make some radical changes. Now, I was saying don't be like crazy and aggressive and just do things without being measured. But, I mean, they're going to take a big swing. Got Kenneth Burnett saying, I hope Franklin was serious about opening up the offense and throwing to wide receivers and not just tight ends. What do you think? Obviously, like in his few media availability so far, he's made a big emphasis with Troy Hune and talking about it, just even the weather to a certain extent, like, oh, it's a little warmer here. Let's go out and allow a wide receiver to go make a play on the outside. He has to make one move for an explosive play as opposed to a running back who has to make 2 or 3 guys miss. I think he's true to that. Now, what does Howle run? We don't know. He hasn't really had the full fingerprints of his on offense before. So that'll be really interesting and exciting to cover through spring ball and even beyond. I mean, if we are allowed to see practice for the first game. But yeah, I think he's just not giving that lip service. The wide receiver is always going to be a part of the offense. I know like a couple years ago, Tyler Warren was such a unicorn and they relied on him heavily, but I think the wide receiver is heavily going to be involved in something that's going to be emphasized a ton. Obviously, as he's was able to take a step back and say, okay, what changes do we need to make? And it seems like one of those big changes was like, we have to get the wide receiver position involved effectively. And like, let's not forget, James Franklin is an offensive guy. So, I think we'll have his footprints all over it. And because he understands the magnitude of getting this right. Got Mazzy Vet saying, is O'Brien still coming? Yes. The quarterback coach, yes. Danny O'Brien will be the quarterback coach at Virginia Tech, obviously coming over from Penn State. Got Miles Johnson. Anyone currently in the portal from Virginia Tech that could come back? Dante Lovett. I don't really foresee anyone who entered the portal from Virginia Tech returning at this time. Tucker Holloway, Dante Lovett, Michael Short, Christian Ellis. I don't see that at this time. No. Got Dave the Barber saying, now that Tony Alford is available, Franklin should go throw the bank to him. They know each other well, and he's a great recruiter. Yeah, I brought that up a little earlier in the show. That's a really fresh situation. Obviously, like I said arguably. I don't think it is arguable. He probably is the best running back coach in America. It's just, who knows? Obviously, they have a great connection, or they know each other well, have coached together. Will they go that direction? I mean, the news is still coming out. I can only imagine the next time I open X and get on the phone and talk to people about the newest relevant revelations in the debacle going on in Ann Arbor. But yeah, I mean, obviously, a very quality coach would be a massive pull. But as of right now, that running back position sounds like Brooks is trending the right way. Got Alexander Meisler in here saying, does Franklin report to anyone on these staff hires? Does he work with the GM to allocate a certain budget based on what's left after the most recent hire? I mean, pretty much like he's the final say on these guys. Now you have to talk to people and weigh the budget, if the staff gets or the salary gets a little preposterous, but you kind of know the range you're working with. And at the end of the day, it's kind of his call on pretty much everything with the program. Got Wilson Avila saying, if these coaches competed with Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan on the trail, imagine what they could do against Duke, Virginia. These coaches are going to look like geniuses out there. I mean, schematically and recruiting-wise, you could definitely point to that. But yeah, how it's just, I know he's called a couple plays before. I don't think you can say you're a play caller until you call a full season of plays. So that'll be really interesting to see. And Pry obviously getting back with the card in his hand and calling the defense for the first time since 2022. So. Amari Smith saying, do you think there will be any new commits for the second signing day? I mean, that's a pretty big hypothetical. Does Isaiah Pena sign? He's the last one hard commit to not sign yet in that early signing period. I think that'll be interesting. But yeah, as of right now, I mean, there's always some late senior evals, so that'll be something to monitor. But yeah, we'll see. Someone talking about any updates from the NIL meeting on Sunday. No real updates. I mean, just trying to make sure to build a framework to make this sustainable year over year. So it's not just obviously a massive influx of cash and the excitement of Franklin, but how to build a real roadmap for how to have continued NIL structure and success year over year, so you can keep, retain, and continue a consistent standard. Obviously, something that's fallen off of Virginia Tech. Got people talking about different recruits in the comment section. Wilson Aviles, are you hearing anything for next year's recruiting class? It's still really early, and like I said, it's a dead period right now. So you just ended, and you can't talk to any 2027s. We have 2 good articles over on vtscoop.com. I authored one. Brian Doan wrote the other about top 2027 players in Virginia and their reaction to Franklin. A couple of those guys have already talked with Franklin. A couple of those guys have been offered by Franklin already. But for a lot of those guys, they can't hit the ground running until the end of the dead period. So, I mean, good reactions, but not much more substance beyond that. When junior days start kicking up, vtscoop.com is going to be the place to be. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Might have some fun stuff built in with all that. But yeah. Got Heath Hyatt saying, what is the scoop of them losing off the Merriman Center? I don't know if you're talking about, but yeah, Merriman's been pretty much walled up, shut down, like even for basketball games or anything. They've kind of shut that place down and made it just like a football only facility, which I think is good. You know, like that's kind of how you have to standardize it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's just a microcosm of how James Franklin runs a tight ship. But I think that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate everyone tuning in here. I really say it every time, but I mean, the support, the feedback has been absolutely incredible on getting the show going. Getting to the end of the semester, got a couple more finals. But yeah, man, appreciate all the support. It's meant the world. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video. If you missed it, make sure to go back and rewind it. Post this back to the YouTube channel. Subscribe, like the video, share the show with a friend if you enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll have a ton of content coming. It's not slowing down anytime soon. We might have a show this weekend after Army-Navy, potentially, maybe after the Heisman ceremony. But keep an eye out for that. Follow on the socials on X at Kolby_Crawford, or subscribe to the show for all the notifications. But thank you guys. This would not be possible without you. I'm going to keep trying and producing the best content. But yeah, until next time, have a great rest of your night. Enjoy the quality time coming up, hopefully with family and friends around Christmas, and just stay vigilant, I guess. You know, it's a crazy, crazy world. So keep the main thing. Be kind to another. Be kind to one another. Have a great night. And thank you guys so much. But yeah, have a great night, and we'll see you next time.